Good day, my name is Graham, and today, on this video, now, I want to reveal a secret about the Liberals that they either know, and the hierarchy, the upper elite, echelons of elite amongst them know this, but the masses they've created into a collective, the Me Too movements, the equal rights movements, which are meaningless without philosophical explanation. These movements and the climate change movements, all these movements that the Liberals have collected into a political class of people for an ideological purpose, which has nothing to do for the benefit of the people they've collected in under them in their political class. The elite, this is what the Liberals don't want. The so-called liberal, they're called liberals in America, we call them the left in Australia. When they say liberal, you think someone who's into freedom and freedom of expression has a very easygoing nature, and actually these people called liberals in America in particular seem to be extremely conservative and rigid, almost frozen solid in their views, like they dare not think outside their little paradigm they've been created. That they've been corralled into sort of a cave where they dare not venture outside lest everyone else in the cave will get upset with them. The important thing to understand about these Liberals, and this is the important thing that everyone ought to understand, is that the Liberals, especially, it's best to pass this on to the, let's say, the ones of whose education has failed them, to have them believe everything they're told by certain, what I call a liberal media. The left is sponsored by the far right. You can't get any more far right than those who are sponsoring and financing this attack on the Western traditional lifestyles and our democracy and our freedom and liberation through the use of various propagandas and brainwashing techniques. The PC is a program codex used to create a recessive cognitive, if you like, downward trend among society, so it's less able to question and rationally explain what is being told to do by the elite and the authority. That's what the idea of, and it's a very clever program. This far right, and you can call them what you like. We used to call them the Nazis, and now they're not the Nazis anymore. It's offensive to call people the Nazis. Nonetheless, whether they're Nazis now or not, globalized socialism means they're Gatsies then, if you like. There's no such thing as anything to do with socialism. It sort of sounds like a nice idea when you're immature and 15-year-old. When you get older and you see it's in the hands of despots and people and criminals, it becomes in the hand of criminals. It's sort of taken over by the criminal class of society, socialism, and then it starts to oppress the rest of society according to the methodology and ideology of the elite in itself, only for the purpose of the elite, not for the purpose of the masses it subjugates. So it's very, this is not a long video, and no, it doesn't need to be long. People can do their own research and know that this liberal, what we call liberal in America, and they have a liberal party in Australia, which is the least liberal people in the world, are in the liberal party in Australia. They wouldn't have a liberal, never had a new thought in all of their lives, still called the Liberals, without a rigid parochial set of people who dare not think outside a set format of how you must speak and think, which is what's wrong with Western democracy today. It doesn't have no creative thinkers. There's a few coming along in Jacob Rees-Mogg and a few like that, but basically the West is now moribund because it has no leadership as such, no creative imagination, and because they're all owned by this far right. There's no left. The left is if you like, mimosas, what used to be the socialist-based parties, the Democrats in America and the Labour parties in Australia and in England, and we are targeted in these countries and other places. They're being taken over over the last 3 decades at least by a sort of a legalised class of people who are there for the purpose to do the bidding of the corporations or the far right, or the elite, the Illuminati or whoever is behind this attack, if you like. It's an attack on Western society, using the political system, the democratic system, to basically kill off the democratic system. The democratic system should work by rational, objectified, impartial debate and creative thinking amongst the politicians. We don't see any of that. There is none of that. Very little is done in Australia. We haven't seen any creative thinking here for many 30 years, regardless of what they like to propagate in the paper. You'll see none in America. They've basically gone the same in Australia as they have in America. You feed into the corporate class, feed in the debt, look after the banks, look after the major financiers, and stuff the people, and the people cop the hardship and debt, and then it's all about equality. Yet the main point about equality would be economic equality. What does that mean? That is not allowed to be discussed anymore, because we're all talking about nefarious ideas of equality that cannot be. What is the philosophical meaning of equality? We can't discuss that. So therefore, it's just noise. It's a lot of noise now, clouding out, if you like, the intelligence that the West ought to be founded on and ought to create solutions to the problems created by the far right. And it has to be stressed over and again, it's the far right that control the liberals in America and control the leftist movement in Australia. And there's nothing to do with socialism. It's the far right as you can get. Patriarchy, a very strict ancient patriarchy, runs the world, and the feminists are paid and financed. The Me Too movement, all these people are pushed and financed and paid for and promoted through the media owned by the very far right. So you see, it's all a lie. Everything you hear about these people, the left, the liberals, they're not liberals, they're control people. You can't be a control person and all your thoughts control and say you're a liberal at the same time. You can't say you're a socialist and then make sure and not stand for people against the bankers who've got no longer conscience. They're sitting there above the society, may as well be on another planet, just targeting humans like just specimens to be treated like a biological specimen. And that's all the humanity is being treated like by the far right, who control the liberals in America and the socialists in Australia and the Labour Party, or the left in Australia and the left in probably in Canada and anywhere else is a Western democracy that they've used to destroy Western democracy. It's a war against the West by the far right to control the wealth and ability and the civilization of the West, to just basically begin to erode its substance and its traditions and basically kill it off if you can get away with it. Wake up now. The liberals in America are controlled by the far right. It's as simple as that, and so probably so half the Republicans as well. So it's not picking on just those. They're both in it together. In other words, left and right in Australia and America and England are in it together. They're both controlled by the far right. He who controls the currency controls the government. He that controls the media controls the people and the propaganda. It's that simple.